Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 526. I had the black pieces. My opponent played d4, and I tried to go for the Nimzo Indian with knight f6, c4, and e6. So he foiled my plans to go directly into the Nimzo Indian with this move knight f3. You can see actually that's the most common response. Lots of times people want to avoid the Nimzo, which seems to give black pretty good chances. Now there's a lot of different ways to reply to this. Chess Explained has a book about the Nimzo Indian and the Bogo Indian, and he recommends a move bishop b4 check. Well, I don't know if he say recommends, but points out that that's a good way, and he explains how to play that. And particularly if you're playing it in a system with the Nimzo, it leads to similar positions. But I've actually never played the Bogo Indian, so I don't really know that move. I used to always play the Queen's Indian, and then I gave it up and experimented with different things. The top choice here, d5, you can actually get into a decent version of the Queen's Gambit declined, and that's a fine way to play. White hasn't played the most aggressive move. If you had gone directly into the Queen's Gambit declined, the white knight would have probably gone to c3 rather than knight to f3. So, but it's not a huge difference. But it's an okay version of the Queen's Gambit declined if you want to go that way. Or you can play c5 here, which is something I've done here, and go into a Benoni. And the advantage of going into a Benoni at this point is that this knight is blocking the f-pawn, so that the so-called flick knife attack with f4 and e4 and just trying to roll you over in the center is at least slowed down by a step, because the knight has to get out of the way first. So it's an interesting way to get into the Benoni. But b6 is a very respectable move, and I have played it before, but not for a while. It used to be one of my mainstays. My standard response if someone avoids the Nimzo, I just go for the Queen's Indian. But I haven't played it in a while. Been experimenting with those other moves, and so I get into trouble here with a very common tactic. So knight c3, bishop b4, and of course the bishop is loose here. But I was thinking, oh, this is just like a Nimzo, isn't it? And right here I make my mistake. One way it's not like a Nimzo is that if we'd done this in the Nimzo Indian move order, where I put the bishop here, he put the knight here, let's see, it would be his move, he'd put the knight here, it would be my move, and I wouldn't have played that move b6. I would have played the move c5 directly, which defends the bishop and often provokes some action on the queen side here to settle the situation with the bishop. So it's a slightly different position than I would have gotten into with the Nimzo. And although b6 is a move in the Nimzo, it's not one that I play in this particular position. Anyway, right now it's White's move. He plays bishop d2, and I went d5, and that's the mistake. I should continue with normal moves like bishop to b7. Let's see, is knight to c6 playable here? Knight c6 is not on the list. Let's see if there's a problem with that. Castles is a good move too. Castles and bishop b7 seem like the best choices, but I'm curious about knight c6. It's a bit of a provocative move because it's kind of encouraging White to push on with d5. Okay, well, it doesn't lose immediately, but it looks like White can get a good game with queen c2. Okay, so anyway, in this position I should play bishop b7 or castle. Instead I play the horrible blunder d5. And this just loses a piece to the very typical tactic, queen a4 check, hitting the bishop and hitting the king. And what's different in this line from other lines is that many times you have the move knight to c3, which does both. It does two things. It blocks the check, and it defends the bishop. But because I played the move b6, the knight on c6 is just not defended, so it just loses a piece. So against this tactic, you always have to be wary of this tactic whenever, well, for example, if there were a white pawn here on d5 controlling the c6 square, then you would have to worry about that tactic because you don't have knight c6. There are other cases where knight c6 becomes problematic. Maybe you can hop in with the knight. But usually knight c6 is a perfectly good defense. But, well, when you're playing the Queen's Indian, that knight c6 move is just not available because you've undefended the c6 square. So looks like I lost the I lost the game score when I was playing that. Hold on just a second. Let's get it back. Okay, so we were here, Queen A4 check. And yeah, I was just explaining all the reasons why Knight C6 can be a problem. Lots of times Knight C6 is a perfectly good defense. But in this case, it doesn't work because that square has been undefended by the move B6, the typical move of the Queen's Indian. So anyway, I'm just down a piece here, and there is no way around it. I tried for some activity here, but it's interesting that the Queen comes to this square after it takes the knight, and it's automatically stopping me from castling. And of course, I don't want to trade queens. The only way I can get castled is to move the queen out, and and that just allows him to trade queens, which I don't want to do when I'm a piece down. So I struggle on for a few moves, but he does an excellent job. So you can look at this from White's point of view. He does an excellent job of stifling all my counterplay. Let's see, C6 just opens things up. A good idea with his extra piece, and my pieces are not getting into the game very quickly. And then he brings his queen into D6, really a dominating position here where it's not easy for me to chase the queen away. Once again, you know, moves like this just provoke more trades. I try knight A6, trying to get my pieces out in some fashion or other. Here's E3, knight C7. Kind of a long-winded way of getting to maybe this square to chase the queen out, but it's just not happening. He comes in with his pieces. Let's see, I play A6, so I have control over the B5 square. He goes bishop D3. I go rook C8. Maybe getting the knight out of the way and bringing my rook up, but you know, his knight is controlling the C6 square even. He castles. He has all the time here, and I'm just all tied up. I go with knight B5, trying to break out. He takes. I take. And then, let's see, knight takes D7. Oh yeah, he decides to take the bishop here. I take back with the knight. And, you know, I still want to preserve my queen for any kind of chances, but he takes on B5, taking advantage of a couple of pins here. I mean, the pin against the queen is only, it's not a true pin because my queen is defended, but I don't really want to move the knight and have my queen exchanged. But now the knight is truly pinned because the bishop is pinned against the king and it can't legally move at all. I defend with rook C7. He brings his rook to the C file. I have nothing better than to trade off. And the engine is already finding a mate in 6 here. But let's see. Oh, I just pushed out trying to liberate my other rook. He goes bishop B4. And yeah, it's a nice finish here. There's no way to avoid the mate. I just go rook H6. He goes rook to C8. Oh, queen F8 is already mate. Okay, because I lifted my rook off the back rank. But, well, this wins too. Rook to C8. It's just removing my queen from defending the E7 square, which would be a checkmate, and there's no defense. It's mate and one no matter what I do. So I took the rook and let him mate me. Anyway, a nice finish for White there. Just a single simple mistake. But well, I actually won a game recently using that same tactic against my opponent. It might even have been in the Queen's Indian. You'd think that that would help raise my level of alertness for that tactic, but it didn't seem to have. Anyway, that's their lesson, especially when you're in an opening which is you're a little bit unfamiliar with or a little bit rusty in. You got to be extra alert for those tactics. Okay, see you guys later. Bye.